our agenda. We're going to do 3 quiz problems that about half of students got wrong who took the quiz. So these are problems that proved pretty tricky, but you'll also see where those testing trends I was talking about earlier come into play. We're also then going to do 1 story problem that was from your independent practice on Wednesday that over 1/2 of VCP students got wrong. So just showing me that we super need to practice that. So making sure that you have your pencil and paper ready, then you will have some exit ticket questions. And that exit ticket is that special opportunity to earn some Vista Virtual points by correctly finding how old the Empire State Building is. So let's rock and roll. In case you somehow forgot from the past 6 minutes, these are the three testing trends that I saw on your quiz. 1, we need to read directions carefully. 2, people weren't checking their work. And 3, people weren't using their schema. So we weren't reading the directions to figure out what the question was asking. We weren't checking our work to make sure our answer made sense. And we weren't just taking a step back to think about it and be like, okay, is what I did and my answer, does that make sense with what we've been doing in class the past couple weeks? So to help us not make these mistakes again, I've come up with 4 steps to success. So step 1, we're going to annotate the question. This is something that we should have already been doing. I've been showing us how to do it, but we're really going to take a second to stop for every question, and we're going to make sure that we're going to annotate it. Just like we annotate in ELA, we're going to write down the important information from the question on our scratch paper. Step 2, these are steps for success for fractions. So step 2, we're going to find the denominator. We're going to figure out what is 1 whole. What does it look like? How many pieces are there? So in this case, we're going to count the parts in the whole, and we're going to write that in the bottom of our fraction, in the bottom of our good. Step 3, then we're going to find the numerator. So we know how many pieces make up 1 whole. Now it's our job to find out and to count the pieces that we have or just the pieces that we care about. For example, if the question is asking me how many shaded pieces, what's the fractional amount of shaded pieces in the question, the numerator is the amount of shaded. Those are the amount that I care about. And the final step, we're going to double check by rereading the question. We're going to reread the question and we're going to think about, does my answer actually answer the question? Is it what I care about in the question? Does my answer make sense? All right, so let's practice using these steps on the following 3 problems. So the first question that we're going to answer today is, what fraction of the circle below is shaded? You might be thinking, Ms. Cupp, there's no picture below. That's because we don't care about the picture yet. Remember our steps to success. The first thing that we have to do is we annotate. We annotate. So I'm going to write my date at the top. It's gonna be May. It's May 1st. All right. So I'm going to annotate the important information. It says what fraction of the circle below is shaded. So I'm going to write the word shaded to help me remember I only care about the pieces that are shaded. By writing it down, you will be more likely to remember it. So now we've annotated the question. If you were taking this on a paper test, these are just reminders of the steps for success in case you don't have them memorized like I do. But if we were annotating this on a paper, if you had this as a paper test, you might underline shaded. We don't have that. You can't write on a computer, or unless you want to spend a lot of money to replace it. So we're going to write shaded. So we went ahead and we did step 1. I'm giving us a check. Now we actually can care about what the circle looks like. So here's the circle. So I know my step 2 is I need to count the parts in the whole. So we're looking at the number of equal pieces in the whole. In this case, I'm looking and I see that there are 1, 2, 3 pieces. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to write that in the denominator. There are 3 pieces in my whole. Going ahead and giving us a check, say check, nice job. Now we have to count the pieces that we care about. In case we've forgotten, I'm going to go back to my annotation. So the fractional amount that we care about for this is the shaded amount. So how many pieces are shaded? In this case, I come over, I count 1, 2. So I know that 2/3, 2/3, I could also write it like this. 2/3 of the circle is shaded. So we did step 3. Now we always have to go back and double check by rereading the question. The question asks, what fraction of the circle below is shaded? Double checking. Did I count the pieces that were shaded, that were colored in? Yep, there are 2 pieces shaded out of a total of 3 pieces in the whole. So I would type in 2/3. Some of us got a little bit tricked and we did not pay attention to the is shaded, and we said that the amount was 1/3. Where do you think their mistake was? If you're thinking to yourself, Miss Cupp, I think that they did the amount that wasn't shaded, kiss your brain, you're absolutely right. That's why we're really, really practicing rereading the question, because some friends got tricked and they got this question wrong, not because they didn't understand the fraction, but they just didn't read the question correctly, which is super duper silly. So, really making sure that we're reading the questions carefully. All right, let's practice these steps for success on another problem that a lot of friends also got wrong. Let's read this. What fraction of the circle below is not shaded? What's similar to this? Yeah, the problem we just did asked us how many pieces were shaded. Now, this question is asking us how many pieces were not shaded. So I know this might be trying to trick me a little bit here. So I'm going to make sure I annotate. I'm going to make sure I annotate. I'm going to follow my steps for success. So I'm going to annotate the question. I care about the pieces that are not shaded. Maybe you even underline not a couple times to really remind yourself you're looking at the pieces that are not shaded. Again, we haven't looked at the picture yet. That's why I don't have it up yet. So we did our step 1, say check in your best little mouse voice. Ready, go, check. All right, step 2. Now we can actually look at the picture. So here it is. Well, we annotated our question. Now we can look at our picture. Now we need to count the parts in the whole. So I have to figure out what makes up one whole. What is my denominator? So I'm going to come over here. All together, there are 1, 2, 3, 4. So I know these pieces are fourths. They are fourths. It takes 4 equal pieces to make up one whole. So I know I need to put a 4 in my denominator. Each of these pieces is a fourth of the whole circle. Now, we did that correctly, so go ahead and say check in your best monster voice. Ready, go, check. All right, now we need to count the pieces that we have or we care about. We need to figure out the numerator, the number on top, the number of pieces we care about, the number of pieces we have. I'm going to double check my annotation. What pieces am I looking at? Am I looking at the shaded or am I looking at the not shaded? I'm looking at the not shaded. So I'm only going to look at the number of pieces that are not shaded. In this case, I only see 1 piece. So of the fourths in my whole circle, only 1/4 is not shaded. The rest of these are all shaded. A lot of friends got this question wrong because they wrote 3/4. Like I want to say about 80% of the people who got this question wrong said the answer was 3/4, which meant they were doing the opposite of what the question wanted, right? That's why we always are going to check our step 4. Double check by rereading the question. What fraction of the circle below is not shaded? Okay, I know I annotated correctly that I care about the not shaded pieces. I'm even going to write the word pieces. Maybe that'll help me remember. I'm going to write it up here too. Did I count the correct amount of not shaded pieces? I see 1 not shaded piece. I see 1 in my answer. Yep, my answer is good. It makes sense. If I were to maybe get tricked and be like, okay, 1/3, by rereading the question and by double checking my work, I might say like, oh, maybe I got my numerator correct in that case, but I got a little bit tripped up and I didn't count how many total pieces were in the whole. That's why we're always going to do the denominator first. All right. The final question that we're going to practice our steps to success with was another question that quite a few friends got wrong. In this case, I think what tricked some people was we were looking at the fractional amount of a set. So we weren't like breaking one whole into pieces like we were on the previous problem, but we were looking at the set. So in this case, let's follow our steps to success. Step 1, annotate the question. In this case, I'm going to annotate the information that is important. It might not just be one word. So there are 2 red cars and 1 white car at a stoplight. What fraction of the cars are white? So I know the important information out of this. If this was a paper test, these are the things I would underline. There are 2 red cars. There's 1 white car. So I'm thinking to myself, okay, so there's 2 red cars, there's 1 white car. I know that there are 3 cars together. What do I care about? The fraction of the cars that are white. So let's annotate the question on our scratch paper since we know we can't go ahead and write on a computer screen. So I would write 2 red cars, 1 white car, and then the fraction that we care about, I would just write fraction equals white cars. Maybe you don't want to write fraction equals white cars. Maybe you underline white. I would probably write out fraction equals white cars to remind myself I care about the white cars. That's the fractional amount I care about. This would also be a really great place to maybe draw a picture. Help us visualize what this problem might look like. So what I did here is, all right, there's 2 red cars and 1 white car. Maybe you're not drawing cars like that. Maybe you're drawing circles and you're shading them in. Whatever floats your boat. So we've annotated our question. I even drew a little picture. Check. Now we need to count the parts in the whole. This is where a lot of us got tricked. A lot of us said the fractional amount of cars that were white was 1/2. Where do you think they got the 1 and the 2 from? So a lot of people are like, oh, it's 1/2. Where do you think they got those numbers from? Can I give you a second to think? If you're thinking to yourself, Miss Cupp, I think they got tricked because they said the 1 is the number of white cars and then the 2 is the number of red cars. So they were just like seeing the numbers that they saw in the story problem and trying to put them into a fraction. If you think that, I think you're absolutely correct. It's not right though. So let's think about this. Let me do this. How many cars do we actually have? That's our denominator. How many parts are in the whole group? How many cars are there? There's 3. The 2 red cars plus the 1 white car, 2 plus 1 is 3. So my denominator, my denominator is going to be 3 because there are 3 cars in my whole group. In this case, we're not taking a car and breaking it apart into fractional amounts, but we're looking at the group. In this case, one whole group are the 3 cars. Now, we went ahead and found the denominator. We found how many are in the whole group. Now we need to count the pieces that we have. Now we need to find the numerator. I'm going to go back to my annotation. Which do I care about? Do I care about the red cars? Do I care about the white cars? Are they being really tricky and asking me like how many blue cars when there are no blue cars? Let's go back and check. So I know the fractional amount. We care about the white cars. So just like I did when we were counting the pieces in the circles, I'm going to go see how many parts, how many cars are white. I come over to my drawing. I see 1 white car. So I would say 1/3 of the cars are white. Did that step? Now let's double check the question or double check by rereading the question. So the question said there are 2 cars, there are 2 red cars and 1 white car at a stoplight. Maybe I do another strategy. Maybe in this case, I draw on my paper and I say, okay, here there are 1, 2, 3 cars. It says 2 of these cars are red. So I'm just going to put an R in the circle. I'm not going to waste my time by drawing a car. I'm not that talented. I'm just going to draw some circles and then label them. That's totally fine. And then it says 1 white car at a stoplight. So I'm going to just put a W in this. What fraction of the cars are white? So I'm looking at my illustration that I just did here. How many are white? Well, there's a total of 3 cars. 1 of those 3 cars is white. So I know the fractional amount of white cars is 1/3. That matches my previous answer. So I know that makes sense. I'm also going to think, does that answer just make sense in general? Are there 3 cars? Yeah. Is one of them white? Yeah. if I got a 4 in the denominator, and when I was checking my work, I might think, okay, where is 4 in my illustration? Where is 4 in my story problem? If you don't see it, probably need to go double check. All right, my friends, we just practiced our 4 steps for success on 3 different story problems that quite a few of us got wrong on the quiz. Now, we're going to do a story problem, like a CGI type story problem. The steps for success, they're still going to be there, but they won't be as checklisty. So let's watch. Okay, so this story problem was one from Wednesday in which I was baking cupcakes. I'm going to read it just like I would any other problem, and I'm going to annotate for some important information. I ran out of room with my paper, so I'm going to go ahead and move it. Question 4. Miss Cupp, me, bakes 15 cupcakes for a birthday party. 15 seems like something that was pretty important. Like if I had this text, I would underline 15. So I'm going to write 15 total. I only have 15 cupcakes, what it says I bake. If there are 10 people at the party, how many cupcakes will each person get? So I'm thinking, okay, 10 people, that's some important information. I'm going to write 10 people. And then we want to know how many cupcakes will each person get. So what am I doing here? In this case, I'm taking 15 cupcakes and I'm splitting them between, so I'm going to use my division sign because I know this means split between or split into 10 groups. So I'm splitting 15 cupcakes into 10 groups or between 10 people. So I did check 1 of my steps to success. I annotated the problem. Go ahead and give yourself a pat on the back because we did step 1. So the next step in our step to success would be to find the denominator. It's a little bit different when we're doing a story problem because first we have to think about what we're doing. So let's just think about this. If I had 15 cupcakes and I need to split them into 10 groups, what I'm going to think to myself is, okay. So if I have 10 people, I know 10 is less than 15. So I can just give everybody a cupcake. So what I'm going to do to make this even more obvious is I'm just going to draw 15 circles as my cupcakes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. I like to try to put them in groups to see what we can do. All right. So now I need to give them to 10 people. So I'm going to say this is person 1, this is person 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So I notice that every single person gets a cupcake, right? There's enough to give every single person one whole cupcake. But then I have these 5 leftover cupcakes. Am I just going to let them go to waste? Absolutely not. No. Yeah, some of you are just like, oh yeah, everybody gets a cupcake. And I was like, what happens to these other 5? You're just going to let them feed them to the dog or something? No, those are good cupcakes. I spent a long time making them. You better give them to people. So what can I do to make sure there are 5 cupcakes left over? What can I do to make sure that every person, every one of these 10 people gets one? I'm going to have to break them apart, right? So the first thing that I always try to do is, okay, if I were to break each of these cupcakes into halves, how many would I have? Let's check. I just find breaking them into halves is easier. It's quicker. All you got to do is slice them down the middle, right? 1. So now I know I have 1 piece, 2 piece, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Huh. So all I had to do was just split these into halves, and I created 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 pieces, right? So I know in this case, every single person gets 1 cupcake and a piece, right? So they get a piece of a cupcake. But we're smart 3rd graders, and we actually know how much each of those pieces are. Of 1 whole cupcake, how much is this? I see 2 equal pieces. This is 1/2. This is 1/2 of a cupcake. Say that with me, of a cupcake. So this is 1/2 of a whole cupcake. So the piece that everyone gets is actually 1/2 of a cupcake. So everybody is going to get 1 cupcake and 1/2 of another cupcake. So person 1, they get this cupcake, and then they also get this half. Person 2 would get this whole cupcake, and then also this half of the cupcake. I'll do one more color so we can be showing. Person 3, they get this whole cupcake, and then this piece, this half of another whole cupcake. I could keep color coding and going, but I think I've made my point. So how much does each person get? Each person gets 1 and 1/2 cupcakes. They get 1 whole and 1/2 of a whole cupcake. You could even write all of that out, but for time, the answer is 1 and 1/2 cupcakes. So I'm going to think to myself, does this answer make sense? Does it make sense that if there were 10 people and 15 cupcakes, that each person would not only get a whole cupcake, but would get a little bit more? Yeah, that makes sense. We just drew it to prove it, right? We drew our 15 cupcakes. Each person got 1 whole cupcake. And then we split the remaining cupcakes into pieces so that each person can still get a piece. But we know we're smart third graders that that piece that I'm referring to that each person gets on top of their whole cupcake is 1/2 of a whole. Because we split each whole cupcake, just cut it down the middle so that there was 2 equal pieces. And that is how we would solve that question. Alrighty, my friends. So, as a reminder, we just practiced doing our steps to success. 4 steps to success. Annotate the question. We still did that in the story problem. Find the denominator. We still did that in the story problem by figuring out what was a piece. We found the denominator. We found the numerator because in that piece, there was 2 pieces in a whole. 1 piece was just 1. And then we thought about, did our answer make sense by double checking and rereading the question? We know that these steps work for multiple choice questions. These step works for story problems. These are our steps to success. All right, here is our checklist just to make sure that we do everything we need to do this Friday to make sure that we are successful. We are hitting all of our points. So step 1, you're going to take your exit ticket. It is 3 questions. It is very similar to what we just did. If you use those 4 steps to success that we talked about this whole review lesson, you will crush it. Step 2, you're going to complete any missing assignments because those missing assignments, they turn into zeros on Monday. You can always go back and make them up for points, but if they're not done by next Monday, they will get a 0 and you will have to go back to make them up. Obviously, if things are coming up, my friends, like please private message your teachers so that we can help you. Like if you're sick, if you're not feeling well, if something is going on, either have your parent reach out to a teacher or send us a private message, okay? Step 3, you're going to play Prodigy. I've assigned some really cool stuff on Prodigy that has to do with fractions. And starting on Monday, the top 3 students on the leaderboard will get 4 Vista virtual points. So each week, I'm always going to encourage you to play Prodigy or maybe play Splash Learn. I'm really looking at Prodigy for fractions right now because they got a lot of helpful things. If you play Prodigy, the top 3 students each week will get 4 Vista virtual points. So make sure you get those Prodigy minutes in, but you do got to do your completed assignments first. And then after you play some Prodigy for a little bit, have a good weekend. Go outside, enjoy the weather, but be safe because it's going to be really hot. And make sure that if you are outside, you are being safe. But just have a good weekend. Spend time with family. Don't stress. All right, my friends, I hope you have a wonderful weekend. Good luck on your exit ticket.